This video is going to have just extra examples of how to write the equation of a line when you're given 2 points. Okay, so in this first example here, you have these 2 points, and it says that the line goes through those 2 points, and you have to write the equation. So I'm going to, again, do it using both methods. So again, you can choose whichever method you want to use. But remember, anytime you're writing the equation of a line and they're kind of giving you weird information, make sure that you remember you have to have the slope and you have to have a point that it goes through to be able to write the equation of the line. So that's your first goal, is to find those 2 pieces of information. And notice we don't know the slope, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the side and I'm going to find my slope. So remember, you can graph it and do the rise over run, or you can plug it in the slope formula. So remember, slope formula on top, you're going to subtract your y values. So I'm going to take -1 minus my 2, subtract your y values, and then notice I started with this point whenever I did the top. So when I go to the bottom, I'm going to go back to this point and use my x value. So on the bottom, you've got 4 minus my other x value is 0. Okay, and then I just simplify. So -1 minus 2 is -3. And then on the bottom, 4 minus 0 is 4. And then that won't simplify without getting a decimal, so I'm going to leave it just the way it is. Okay, so that's my slope. So now I have my slope. I'm going to write it over here. And then I have to use a point that they give me. So you can use either one. If you don't like negatives, you could use the 0 too. If you didn't really care, you just pick one. Okay, this one looks like it's going to be easier to work with, so that's the point I'm going to use. Okay, so if I was using slope-intercept form to write the equation of the line, remember you plug it in, and then you're going to find the y-intercept first, and then you plug in your slope and y-intercept at the end. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So my slope is -3/4. So for my m, I'm going to plug in my -3/4. And then remember, you use this as your x and your y. So for my y, I'm going to put my 2. And then my x is 0, so I'm going to put a 0 in there. And then I'm going to simplify that to find out what my y-intercept is. And this one's actually an easy one, because 0 times -3/4 is 0. And so you know your y-intercept is 2. And so when you write your equation, you rewrite the y equals mx plus b, but this time you plug in your slope and your y-intercept. So my slope was -3/4, and that's the number in front of x. And then that's plus your y-intercept is 2. And if you looked closely, you would have realized that this is actually the y-intercept, because the x value is 0 right there. Okay, so then from there, if I'm using point-slope form, I'm going to plug in my point for my x and my y, and then I'm going to, or my x1 and my y1, and then I'm going to plug in my slope for my m. Okay, so it'd be y minus my y1 equals the slope, and then x minus my x1. So remember, put blanks first and then plug in. So my y value is 2. My slope is -3/4. And then x minus my x value is 0. Okay, then I simplify. So I've got y minus 2. X minus 0. Anything minus 0 is just going to be whatever you have, so that's going to end up being x. So on this side, I just have -3/4 x. If this was something other than 0, remember you'd have to distribute your -3/4. Okay, and then from there, to get y by itself, I have to add 2, and there's nothing over here that's like terms, so I'm just going to put it to the side. These go away, and then y equals -3/4 x plus 2. So there's my equation. All right, so another example, if you have these 2 points, got to find the slope first. So I'm going to go to the side and I'm going to find my slope. So take my x values and subtract them, or excuse me, take the y values and subtract them on top. So it'd be 3 minus -3. Okay, then I started with this point, so on the bottom I'm going to go back to that point and start with the x value there. So it'd be 2 minus 4. Okay, and then I simplify. So 3 minus a negative 3, that becomes plus a positive. So 3 plus 3 is 6. And then on the bottom I have 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. And that simplifies to be negative 3. So that's my slope. All right. And then again, you choose whichever point. That's positive, and so I like positive numbers, and so that's the point I'm going to use to plug in. Okay. So this is my x, that's my y value. So when I plug it in here, remember you're finding your y-intercept, so you can plug in the slope and the y-intercept to write the equation. So I'm going to plug my y value in for y. My slope goes in for slope. And then my x is 2. And then bring down my plus b. I solve this for b. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. I have to add my 6 to both sides to solve. So negative 6 plus 6 is 0. On this side I get 9. And then, so my y-intercept is 9. Okay, so once you have your slope and your y-intercept, remember you just go back in and plug it in, this equation. So it's y equals, my slope is negative 3, so that's the number in front of x, and then my y-intercept is 9. All right, so if you're doing point slope form, you still have to find your slope and your point. So I'm going to just use the same stuff that I had. So my slope was negative 3. And then the point that I used was 2, 3. And even if you use this point, you will, I know it's weird, but you will end up with the same equation, okay? And so it shouldn't matter which point you choose. You'll end up with the same equation regardless, okay? And then you plug in. So remember, you rewrite this one, leaving blanks where you're going to plug in. You can kind of think of like a stamp that you just stamp down on your paper, and then you plug it in, okay? So remember, your y value goes with the y part of it, so the 3 will go here. The slope goes there, so that'd be negative 3. And then right here is your x value, so you plug it in 2, and then you simplify. So on this side, I have negative 3 times this, so I have to distribute my negative 3. So negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 2. Negative times a negative is a positive, and then the 6 will come down, or 3 times 2 is 6. And then from there, I got to get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So negative 3 plus 3 is 0, so that goes away, and you're left with y. And then I have negative 3x comes down, and then 6 plus 3 is 9. So, again, just 2 different methods to find the equation of the line. And notice you get the same answer regardless of which method you use. Hope that helps.